I was mistreated by my family growing up, so when they asked to reconcile to keep up appearances, I exposed them and ruined their reputation. I grew up in a family that thrived on appearances. To the outside world, we were the picture of harmony. But inside our house, things were different. My mother had a talent for weaponizing love. One moment, she'd hug me so tightly I thought she might mean it, and the next, she'd remind me that I'd never be as smart or as graceful as my older sister, Amanda. My father was more subtle. He believed in silent punishments, the cold shoulder, dinners eaten in utter silence if I failed to meet his impossible standards. Once, I came home with an art award I was proud of. Instead of congratulating me, he told me it wasn't worth as much as Amanda's academic trophies. The worst was Amanda, though. She excelled in everything my parents valued. And she made sure I knew it. She'd borrow my clothes without asking, then blame me if something got ruined. When I got upset, my mother would tell me to stop being petty, that I should be grateful Amanda even wanted to borrow my things. When I turned 18, my parents decided I needed to contribute to the household. Not with chores, those I'd been doing for years, but financially. They demanded I hand over half my paycheck for my part-time job. Amanda, who still didn't lift a finger around the house, was exempt from this rule. One Christmas, I saved up for months to buy everyone thoughtful gifts. When I handed my mother her present, she smiled and said, "This isn't really my style," before tossing it aside. My father didn't even open his. And Amanda laughed when she saw what I got her, saying she'd seen it on sale and figured I'd gotten it cheap. I moved out at 22, scraping together everything I had to afford a tiny apartment. My family barely acknowledged my departure. When I called my mother a few weeks later, she said she'd been too busy to notice I was gone. That was the moment I realized I was nothing more than an afterthought to them. The final straw came a year later. Amanda announced her engagement and asked if I'd help her with the wedding. I agreed, thinking maybe this was a chance to mend things. Instead, I found out she'd used my credit card to pay for her wedding dress without asking. When I confronted her, my parents took her side, calling me selfish for making a scene. I went no contact after that. I changed my number, moved to a new city, and deleted my social media. For the first time in my life, I felt free. No more walking on eggshells, no more biting my tongue to keep the peace. I threw myself into my work, discovering a knack for a niche industry that blended creativity and problem solving. Over time, I built a successful career, earning respect and recognition for my expertise. My life became a reflection of my efforts, free from the shadow of my family's impossible expectations, and I finally felt like I belonged in the world I had created for myself. Years passed. Then, out of nowhere, an email from my mother appeared in my inbox. She wrote about how much they missed me, how the family wasn't the same without me. Suspicious, I ignored it. But then my father emailed too, followed by Amanda. The tone was desperate, almost pleading. Curiosity got the better of me. I replied, asking why they were so eager to reconnect after all these years. They wanted to meet, to explain everything in person. Against my better judgment, I agreed. A part of me still longed for the family I'd always wished they could be. When I arrived at the family home, the atmosphere felt tense but overly rehearsed. My mother greeted me with a warm hug that didn't feel genuine, and my father offered a handshake, something he'd never done before. Amanda, however, seemed annoyed rather than happy to see me. It wasn't long before the truth slipped out. They needed me to play nice and be the perfect family member, to secure a lucrative business deal that would benefit Amanda's husband. I was stunned. I confronted them, asking if this was the real reason for their sudden interest in reconciling. My mother tried to downplay it, saying it was a mutual opportunity for the family. My father stayed silent, as always, but Amanda exploded. She accused me of being petty, selfish, and jealous of her success. The argument escalated quickly, with years of resentment spilling out on both sides. Then an idea struck me. Instead of storming out, I decided to play along. I agreed to help them, masking my fury with a polite smile. They seemed relieved, almost giddy, and wasted no time inviting me to a family gathering where I'd meet the wealthy couple tied to the business deal. At the gathering, the couple, a polished, older pair with an air of self-importance, asked me how long I'd known Amanda's husband. I smiled and said, "Honestly, I've only met him a couple of times. I actually don't know much about him at all." Their expressions faltered, but I didn't stop there. When they asked about family traditions, vacations, and dinners, I revealed the truth. I casually mentioned how I hadn't spoken to my family in years, how they treated me as less than my entire life, and how this sudden reunion felt more like a favor for them than genuine reconciliation. By the time I finished, the couple's smiles had disappeared entirely. Amanda's face turned red with rage. She dragged me aside and accused me of ruining everything. She called me jealous and petty, screaming that I'd always been bitter about her success. When I refused to apologize, she lunged at me, trying to slap me. My father and mother intervened, pulling her away, but it was clear the damage was done. I left the gathering with my head held high. Letting the truth slip out in front of their precious business connection was the perfect revenge. They'd shown me exactly what they valued, and it wasn't me. Walking away this time felt liberating, not painful. The door was closed for good, and I was finally at peace. Weeks later, I received an email from the wealthy couple. Curious, I agreed to meet them for coffee. They were polite but direct, explaining that my family had initially mentioned I was experienced in a niche industry they were looking to enter. But it wasn't just about business. Over the course of the conversation, they revealed something unexpected. They'd both been in similar situations with their own families. They shared how they'd endured years of mistreatment before cutting ties and building the life they wanted. Their shared experiences made them value family deeply, but only the family they'd created together. They explained that this was why they sought authenticity in their personal and professional relationships. They admired my honesty during the gathering, even if it had derailed the original business proposal. By the end of the meeting, they surprised me with a job offer. They were impressed by my knowledge and wanted someone they could trust. I left the coffee shop stunned but hopeful. For once, speaking my truth hadn't just set me free, it had opened a door I never expected. I wasn't sure if I'd take the job, but knowing I had the option felt like victory enough.